Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl on your face while you're sleeping. Children are amazing. Well, not always, but most times they do a great job and are great at bringing smiles to our faces. That much is true. When you think of a child, you probably have a stereotypical idea. 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth, perfectly aligned bodies, that sort of thing. And for the most part, that's true. Most children, when born, look the same sort of way. But that assertion is not always true. Some children are born looking the way you'd imagine. And today, we'll be looking at these different but still special kinds of children. Number 10. Human chimeras. No, human chimeras are not the name of a brand new Nike Kicks, even though it sounds eerily like that. Before we talk about human chimeras, let's break it down. First off, what's a chimera? Essentially, a chimera is any organism that is made up of cells from 2 or more individuals. That means that an organism that consists of 2 sets of DNA with code that is meant to make 2 individuals. So you already have an idea of what human chimeras are. But how do you think human chimeras are made? They're made when a twin fetus absorbs the DNA of its sibling. This occurs a lot with fraternal twins. If an embryo dies early enough in pregnancy, some of its cells can be absorbed by the other embryo growing in the body. This means that the fetus that will be born will have 2 sets of cells, the original and the one from its twin. The amazing thing, of course, about human chimeras is that it's almost impossible to know if you are one. One amazing story that proves this is the fascinating tale of Karen Keegan. In 2002, Karen needed a kidney transplant, and she had to go through tests to see if a family member could donate a kidney to her. The tests came back and showed that, biologically, it was impossible for Karen to give birth to her children. Apparently, Karen's children had the DNA of Karen's twin. So technically, Karen's children had no living biological mother, and Karen was 2 persons in 1. If that isn't unusual, we really don't know what is. Number 9. Milagros Cerrone. What do you think of a mermaid? Do you think they could actually exist, or are they just a figment of a hyperactive imagination? Well, we do know that what closely resembles a mermaid can exist. How? Siren Amelia is a condition called the mermaid syndrome that is caused by a congenital deformity where the legs are fused together. This fusion, of course, takes the appearance of a mermaid's tail. Most fetuses that have this condition never survive the neonatal period. If born, a child with Siren Amelia is not likely to survive. However, there are a few notable survivors, like Tiffany Yorks, who underwent successful surgery to separate her legs. Unfortunately, due to fragile leg bones, she was confined to a wheelchair. Number 8. Butterfly children. What image do the words butterfly children conjure in your mind? Is it an image of happy children flying about and doing butterfly-y things? Is it an image of happiness and bliss? If it's one, you'd be wrong. The condition that afflicts butterfly children, known as epidermolysis bullosa, is an extremely painful one. It's a rare genetic condition that causes blistering of the skin and mucous membranes. Children that are born with this condition live a very hard and painful life. Scratching them or giving them even the gentlest of touches can cause blisters and bruises. It can even make their skin tear. That isn't all. The condition comes with a lot of secondary complications, and children afflicted with it don't often live long. Many of them die before 30. Number 7. The 2 faces of Singh. In March 2008, Singh was born to Vinod and Shishma Singh in Sani, Sapura, Sohanpur village near Delhi. Her birth was delayed because she had a unique genetic problem. She had diplocypus. Because of her large head, her mother found it very difficult to give birth to her, and the woman had to receive an episiotomy. But first off, what's diplocypus and why did Singh have it? Diplocypus is a condition also known as craniofacial duplication. Simply put, it's a condition of having 2 faces. Children with diplocypus are often stillborn and rarely live for more than a few hours. But that's where this case is even more unusual. Singh was born with 2 pairs of eyes, 2 noses, and 2 mouths. Her parents saw her as the reincarnation of a goddess Durga, an Indian deity that is often depicted as having many limbs and eyes. That's probably why they refused to allow doctors to perform a CT or MRI scan on Lili. Without this diagnostic imaging, it was impossible for doctors to figure out exactly how much her condition may have affected her brain and other vital organs. However, her parents said Lili was as healthy as any child had a right to be. As expected, she soon developed a lot of secondary complications. For example, her two middle eyes suffered from corneal opacity, which is a condition caused by the abnormal anatomy of her facial muscles. She also had a cleft palate, which made it difficult for her to feed and suck food. She began to dehydrate and soon became very ill. Her parents were alarmed and took her to the hospital. There, she was given antibiotics and she began to improve. Unfortunately, this wasn't to last. She died 6 hours later of a heart attack. Number 6. Vanellope Hope. Vanellope Hope was born a pretty normal girl, except for one tiny problem. She was born with a heart outside her body. Yes, you heard that right. Hope was born with a heart firmly planted right outside her chest. She was born with no breastbone and was delivered at Glenfield Hospital in Leicester. She was delivered via cesarean section, and her parents didn't think she would live for long. In fact, before she was delivered, her mother, Naomi Finley, packed a special baby grow in a cocoon to wrap her in, just in case she died. But Hope was a fighter, and she didn't die. In fact, she continued to fight for her life. After a series of 3 incredibly daunting operations, Hope's heart was inserted right back into her chest, and she was allowed to go home. Number 5. Francesco Frank Lentini. Born on May 18, 1889, Francesco was a peculiar baby. Why? He was born with a parasitic twin. That means that he had 3 legs. But that was not all. He had 4 feet and even 2 sets of genitalia. His family was disgraced that they had him, and after 4 months he was sent to a specialist in Nepal to be examined. The examination went well, and it was determined that his 3rd leg was a result of being born with a parasitic twin. Apparently, the twin was attached to his body at the base of his spine and was made up of a pelvis bone, a rudimentary set of genitalia, a full-size leg, and a small foot that protruded from its knee. When he was 5, he was able to straighten his 3rd leg. However, he had to be bound to a wheelchair because he couldn't walk. Francesco achieved worldwide fame by being part of a sideshow. He exhibited in numerous cities, and when he was 8, he moved to America. He became the Great Lentini, as that was his sideshow name, and he had a career that spanned over 40 years. He worked with all the major circuses and shows throughout those 40 years. He died of lung failure at the age of 77. Number 4. Conjoined Twins. We've spoken a lot about twins on this list, but we've not talked about the truly unusual case of conjoined twins. When it comes to unusual children, conjoined twins are the images that often come to mind. Right now, we'll be looking at 2 peculiar but fundamentally different stories of conjoined twins. The first will be about Layden and Leigh Binjan, and the second will be about Aren and Abby Delaney. Layden and Leigh were born conjoined at the skull. They were craniopagus conjoined twins who shared some parts of the brain. However, they spent most of their lives wanting to be separated. But since they shared some parts of the brain, it was tricky to try and separate them. But Layden and Leigh didn't care about the risks. They wanted to live apart at all costs, so they were allowed to undergo surgery. Unfortunately, 30 hours into the surgery, they died of complications. The story of Aren and Abby is a bit happier though. Both children were fused at the head, much like Layden and Leigh. 10 months later, they underwent an 11-hour surgery that separated them. The surgery had to be conducted by about 30 healthcare professionals. Fortunately, both children survived and will never remember that they were once conjoined at the skull. Number 3. Hong Hong. People that have the same first and surnames like Smith Smith or John John are fairly peculiar. But that's not why Hong Hong is on this list. Hong Hong is here because of the peculiar nature of his birth. You see, when human beings are born, we usually come out with 10 fingers and 10 toes. Hong Hong came with 31 fingers and toes. Isn't that quite a bit excessive? He was born with 15 fingers and 16 toes. He had 2 palms and, unsurprisingly, doesn't have a thumb. Now, Hong Hong is peculiar and unusual, but this is by no means a first. Hong suffers from and was diagnosed with polydactylism, a congenital condition that means that a human is born with more toes and fingers than necessary. It's a condition that affects 1 in 1,000 live births. Thankfully, it's a condition that can be corrected through surgery. Now it's time for today's best pick. Today's best pick was sent in from a subscriber. If you ever come across a picture online and would like to know its origins, just send it in to us. Who knows? Your picture may be featured in a future video. Number 2. Cyclops baby. Yeah, are you surprised? Do you think it's impossible? Well, you really shouldn't. And yes, Cyclops baby means exactly what you expect. A Cyclops baby is born with one eye, like the legendary Cyclops, right in the middle of their faces beneath their brows. It's an extreme form of holoprosencephaly, and it is caused by the failure or inability of the embryonic prosencephalon to properly divide the orbits of the eyes into two cavities. Many Cyclops babies died a few moments after birth, and most are not even born at all. A lot of them are miscarried. However, there is a case of a Cyclops baby who lived for a few days after delivery. She was born with only one eye in India. She had no nose and her brain was joined in one hemisphere. She had so many deformities that it was a miracle that she survived birth at all. As expected, she died a few days later.
I saved the best for last, but first, I have a quick challenge that takes only 5 seconds to complete. If you can leave a like and subscribe within the next 5 seconds, you'll get 10 years of amazing luck. Just try it, it really works.
Number 1. Frog-like baby. This is, without a doubt, the most bizarre looking and unusual baby you'll ever see. The baby was born in Chariot and got the monkey or frog baby because of her peculiar looks. She had no neck, and her head is almost sunk into the upper parts of her body. Her eyeballs were extraordinarily large, like that of a frog, and they almost popped out of her eye sockets. She died half an hour after her birth. That's all for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video as much as we enjoyed making it for you, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of videos like this for you. Goodbye, and please remember to stay safe. Catch you next time.